The room was silent, black suits, folded hands, tears everywhere. Then the man stepped forward. He wasn't family, he wasn't invited. He cleared his throat and started talking about love, about loss, about my son's wife. That's when it happened. From inside the closed coffin, laughter. Not a sound system, not a mistake, actual laughter. And when everyone froze in terror, I realized something horrifying. My son wasn't laughing at death. He was laughing at the man speaking. Before we go any further, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. My name is Harold Bennett. I'm 64 years old and I live in Savannah, Georgia. I buried my only son believing I knew everything about his life. I was wrong. And what I discovered at his funeral destroyed every lie I had been living with. I didn't want a big funeral. My son hated attention, hated speeches, hated people pretending they knew him. But when someone dies leaving millions, suddenly everyone remembers them. The chapel was packed. People I'd never seen before stood shoulder to shoulder with relatives who hadn't called in years. All of them dressed in black, all of them whispering. I stood near the front, hands folded, eyes fixed on the closed coffin. It didn't feel real. It still doesn't. My son was 42, sharp, disciplined, quietly successful. He built his wealth without noise, without showing off. That was his way, or at least that's what I thought. His wife sat in the first row, head bowed, face hidden behind a veil. She hadn't cried once. Not at the hospital, not at the viewing, not now. People grieve differently, I told myself. But something about her stillness felt wrong, too controlled, too practiced. The service began. Soft music, carefully chosen words, scripted comfort. Then came the open microphone. Friends, colleagues, business partners, they spoke about his intelligence, his generosity, his discipline. Each story felt rehearsed, safe, until the man stood up. He was sitting near the aisle, 2 rows behind my daughter-in-law, tall, confident, expensive suit, not family. I would have remembered him. He didn't ask permission, just walked to the microphone like he belonged there. The room shifted. You can feel it when something is wrong, a subtle tightening in the air. He smiled. I didn't expect to speak today, he said, voice smooth, practiced. But I felt it was important. Important to who? My relationship with her, he continued, gesturing toward my son's wife, was complicated, my chest tight. Relationship, people turned in their seats. Whispers spread like a ripple. I loved him, the man said, but I loved her too. And I know that may sound strange, but love is rarely simple. My fingers curled into fists. This wasn't a eulogy. This was a confession. My daughter-in-law didn't move, didn't stop him, didn't even look surprised. That's when I heard it. A low sound, soft at first, almost mistaken for someone clearing their throat. Then louder, distinct, laughter coming from the coffin. I swear to God, my knees almost gave out. The sound cut through the chapel like glass shattering. People froze, someone gasped. A woman screamed. The man at the microphone stopped mid-sentence, his face draining of color. The laughter didn't last long. Just a few seconds, but it was enough. Enough to destroy the illusion that this was a normal funeral. Enough to tell me my son had left something behind, something planned, something cruel. The director rushed forward, mumbling about sound equipment. Old wiring, he said quickly. Sometimes recordings. There was no recording, I snapped. I knew my son. He didn't leave accidents. He left messages. The service ended early. People stumbled out in shock, confused, frightened, whispering theories. My daughter-in-law stood slowly, adjusted her veil, and walked past me without a word. Not a tear, not a glance, just gone. I stayed behind. The coffin remained closed. I stood there alone, staring at the polished wood, my reflection warped on its surface. Why? I whispered. Why would he do that? Why now? A hand touched my shoulder. I flinched. The funeral director. There's something else, he said quietly. Something your son asked me to give you, after. He led me to a small office behind the chapel. Dim light, paperwork stacked neatly. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick envelope. My name was written on it, in my son's handwriting, not shaky, not rushed, precise, deliberate. Did he say anything else? I asked. The director hesitated. He said, make sure my father hears the laughter first. My stomach dropped. I took the envelope with trembling hands and stepped outside. The sun felt too bright, too indifferent. I sat in my car and opened the envelope. Inside were three things: a USB drive, a folded letter, and a copy of my son's will. I ignored the will for now. The letter came first. Dad, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I know you hate surprises. I'm sorry. This one couldn't be avoided. I didn't die laughing. I died prepared. The man who spoke today thinks he won. He thinks the money, the marriage, and the story are his now. He's wrong. The laughter you heard wasn't mockery. It was timing. I needed him to speak first. Plug in the drive, but not here. Not yet. And whatever you do, don't confront her until you've watched everything. My hands shook. Watched everything. I looked at the USB drive, black, unmarked. Suddenly, the laughter made sense. It wasn't supernatural. It was strategic. My son hadn't come back from the dead. He had staged his final move. I started the car. I didn't go home. I went somewhere quiet, somewhere safe. A place where no one could see my face when the truth finally came out. As I drove, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You heard it too, didn't you? I stared at the screen. Another message followed. He always said the funeral would be unforgettable. My pulse spiked. Someone else knew. Someone else was watching. And whatever my son had left behind, it wasn't meant for just one person. I didn't answer the message right away. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering, heart pounding. You heard it too, didn't you? That meant one thing. I wasn't the only one who knew the laughter was intentional, and whoever sent that message knew my son well enough to predict his final act. I powered the phone off. If my son taught me anything, it was this: when someone wants your reaction, silence is power. I drove for nearly an hour before pulling into a motel just outside the city. Nothing fancy. No cameras in the lobby, cash at the desk. The kind of place people don't remember. Inside the room, I locked the door, closed the curtains, and sat on the edge of the bed with the envelope on my lap. My hands still trembled. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a single folder appeared. For Dad, watch in order. Inside were 6 video files, dated, numbered. The first one was recorded almost 2 years ago. I clicked play. My son's face filled the screen. Not sick, not weak, focused. Dad, he said calmly, if you're watching this, then things went exactly the way I expected. My chest tightened. I want you to know something first, he continued. I didn't leave millions by accident. I left leverage. Leverage. That money, he said, was never meant to make anyone comfortable. It was meant to make people careless. The video cut. I sat back slowly. My son didn't accumulate wealth. He weaponized it. I opened the second video. This one showed a hotel room. Hidden camera angle. My daughter-in-law sat on the bed, laughing. The man from the funeral stood beside her, the lover, his arm around her waist. Their conversation was clear, too clear. We just need to be patient, she said. He's sick, he won't last forever, the man smirked. And the money? All in my name once he's gone, she replied. He thinks I don't know about the trust structures. My blood ran cold. She knew. She always knew. The video timestamp showed this was recorded 18 months before my son's death, before the diagnosis, before anyone suspected anything. I paused the video and leaned forward, hands covering my face. This wasn't an affair. It was a plan. I forced myself to keep watching. The third video was worse. It showed my son sitting across from the same man, the lover, in a private dining room. They were smiling, shaking hands, partners. So you're okay with it? The man asked. My son nodded calmly. As long as you follow the rules, he said. What rules? My son leaned in. You don't touch her money, you don't touch my accounts, and when I'm gone, you speak at my funeral. The man laughed. Why would I do that? My son's eyes hardened. Because you'll want to. The video ended. I slammed the laptop shut. My son had invited him. He had scripted the betrayal, scripted the funeral, scripted the humiliation. My hands shook as I opened the will. The structure was complex. Trusts inside trusts. Conditional releases, time locks. And one clause bolded: any beneficiary or associated party who publicly claims ownership, partnership, or romantic entitlement at the time of my funeral forfeits all claims. My breath caught. The lover didn't just speak. He claimed, which meant he forfeited everything. I laughed once. A short, broken sound, that's what the laughter was, a trigger, a legal switch. My phone vibrated. I powered it back on. 3 missed calls. same unknown number. A new message appeared instantly. You're watching the videos now. My heart slammed. Another message followed. He trusted you with the ending. I typed back before I could stop myself. Who is this? The reply came immediately. Someone your son didn't trust. A knock sounded at the door, sharp. Sudden, I froze. The knock came again. Housekeeping, a voice called. I hadn't requested any. I moved silently to the door and peered through the peephole. A man stood there, mid-50s, plain clothes, no cart. At housekeeping, my phone buzzed again. Don't open the door, my pulse raced. Another message, he knows where you are. The man knocked harder. Sir, I know you're inside, my breath caught. How? I whispered. Another message. The lover panicked after the funeral. My blood ran cold. He realized the money wasn't coming. The knocking turned into pounding. You need to open this door right now, the man barked. I backed away slowly. My phone vibrated again. Your son anticipated this. I swallowed. How? The reply came in 2 words. Video 6. I rushed back to the laptop, hands shaking as I opened the final file. My son appeared again. This time his face was serious. 12 hours after my funeral, he said, someone will try to intimidate you. My stomach dropped. If they succeed, everything fails, he continued. So here's what you do. He leaned closer to the camera. You let them think they're winning. The pounding on the door intensified. Open up, the man shouted. My son's voice continued calmly. You do not argue, you do not explain, you do not threaten. The video paused, the door handle rattled, I pressed play. You tell them you're scared, my son said. You tell them you don't understand the trust, you tell them you just want peace. The door burst open, the lock snapped. The man stepped inside, tall, hard eyes. Mr. Bennett, he said coldly, we need to talk. I turned slowly. And for the first time that day, I smiled, because I finally understood. This wasn't about inheritance, it was about exposure. And my son had turned me into the final witness. I raised my hand slightly. I don't know what he did, I said shakily, playing my part. I just want this to stop. The man studied me, then smiled. Good, he said, because you're coming with me. As he reached for my arm, my phone buzzed one last time in my pocket. A final message. Good, now let him take you. He didn't cuff me. That was the first thing I noticed. No handcuffs, no badge, no attempt to read me my rights. Just a firm grip on my elbow and a calm voice pretending this was voluntary. Let's take a drive, he said, as if we were old acquaintances catching up after a long time apart. I grabbed my coat. I didn't argue. I didn't resist. Because my son's voice was still echoing in my head. Let them think they're winning. The parking lot was empty except for a dark sedan idling near the far corner. The engine purred low, patient. The man opened the rear door. Back seat, he said. I slid in. The interior smelled faintly of leather and coffee, clean, controlled. The kind of car people use when they don't want witnesses. As soon as the door closed, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I didn't look. I didn't need to. I already knew what it would say. Stay calm. The car pulled onto the road. Streetlights passed overhead in slow rhythm. I stared out the window as the motel disappeared behind us. So, the man said from the front seat, you understand why we're here. I hesitated just enough to look confused. I don't, I said quietly. My son handled all the finances. I'm just his father. He smiled, not warmly. You're more than that. We drove in silence for several minutes. Then he spoke again. Your son was clever, he said, too clever for his own good. I swallowed. He liked games, the man continued. Legal games, financial puzzles, traps within traps. The car slowed. We turned onto a narrow road lined with trees on both sides. No houses, no traffic. I don't know anything about that, I said softly. He turned slightly in his seat and looked at me through the rearview mirror. You will. The car stopped. A gate slid open automatically. We drove through and entered a private property. Large house. Modern. Lights on inside. Security cameras mounted discreetly along the walls. The man parked and opened my door. Welcome, he said. This won't take long. Inside, the air was warm, comfortable. The kind of place designed to make you forget you're being interrogated. He led me into a sitting room, leather chairs, a fireplace. A table with 2 glasses of water. Another man waited inside, older, gray hair, sharp eyes. This one smiled. "Mr. Bennett," he said, standing. "Thank you for coming." I nodded politely. "My name is irrelevant," he continued, "but I represent parties who are very concerned about your son's estate." I sat slowly. Concerned, that word again. "I don't have access to anything," I said. "The will is handled by attorneys." The older man waved a hand dismissively. "We're not here about the will," he said. "We're here about what isn't in it." My pulse thudded. They knew. "Your son," he continued, "created contingencies." I stayed silent. "Conditions triggered by behavior," he said. "Public behavior, the lover, the funeral, the laughter. We believe," he said carefully, "that you know something that could reverse certain outcomes." I shook my head. "I don't." The younger man stepped forward. "You're lying," he said flatly. The older man raised a finger. "Let's not rush." He turned back to me. "Your son anticipated betrayal," he said, "but he underestimated fear." I swallowed. "What fear?" The older man leaned forward. "Yours." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs. My house, my car, my routine, taken recently, my throat tight. "You see," he said calmly, "we don't need the documents." The younger man added, "We need you to confirm something." "Confirm what?" I whispered. The older man smiled thinly. "That your son's final conditions were based on false assumptions." I stared at him. "If you confirm that," he continued, "we can contest the forfeiture." I understood then. They wanted me to say my son wasn't of sound mind, that the funeral stunt was irrational, that the conditions were invalid. All they needed was the grieving father's testimony. My hands trembled. "I don't know how the trusts work," I said. The younger man slammed his palm on the table. "Stop pretending," he snapped. The older man sighed. "Let me be clear," he said. "If you cooperate, this ends quietly." "And if I do?" I asked. He looked at the photos again. "Then it becomes unfortunate." Silence settled heavily. Then my phone vibrated. Once. I didn't check it. Twice. The older man noticed. He smiled. "Is that someone important?" I hesitated. "My son," I said quietly. The younger man scoffed. "Your son is dead." I met his eyes. "No," I said. "He's just finished setting the board." The older man's smile faltered. "Excuse me." I leaned back slightly. "My son recorded everything," I said. "Every conversation, every meeting, every contingency." The younger man laughed. "Bluff." I shook my head. "He knew someone would come for me," I said. "He knew you'd try intimidation first." The older man studied me carefully now. "You're saying he planned this interrogation?" "Yes," I said, "and he planned your reaction." I pulled the USB drive from my coat pocket and placed it on the table. The room went still. The older man's eyes fixed on it. "What's that?" he asked quietly. "The truth," I said, "and a recording of everything that's happened tonight." The younger man lunged forward. "Don't touch." Too late. The older man stopped him. "Wait," he said softly. I continued. "This drive contains a clause," I said, "that activates if I'm detained, threatened, or coerced within 72 hours of the funeral." The older man's jaw tightened. "And what happens then?" he asked. I swallowed. "It releases everything," I said, "to the authorities, to journalists, to people who don't like secrets." The younger man swore. The older man leaned back slowly. "You're lying." I shook my head. "My son didn't leave millions," I said. "He left insurance." The room fell silent. Finally, the older man spoke. "You should leave," he said quietly. The younger man protested. "But now," the older man snapped. He turned back to me. "This isn't over," he said calmly. I stood. "It is for me," I replied. They escorted me out without another word, back into the night, back into the car. But this time they drove me home. As I stepped out onto my driveway, the younger man leaned close. "You think you've won," he whispered. "You don't even know who you've angered." I looked him in the eye. "My son did," I said, "and he planned for that too." Inside my house, I locked the door and leaned against it, trembling. My phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. Good, they took the bait. Another message followed. Part 7 is where the truth becomes public. My breath caught, because now I understood. This wasn't about inheritance. It was about exposure. And my son had turned his death into a countdown. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house sounded like a footstep. Every passing car felt like it slowed outside my driveway. My son had turned his death into a countdown, and I was standing in the middle of it. At dawn, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table where he used to sit across from me on Sunday mornings. Same chair, same quiet, different truth. I opened the laptop again. The USB drive felt heavier now, not physically, but morally. This wasn't just evidence. It was a detonator. I clicked open the folder again, 6 videos. I had watched 5, only one left. Video 6, release. My finger hovered. Part of me wanted to stop, to walk away, to let the lawyers handle everything. But my son didn't build this for lawyers, he built it for pressure. I pressed play. The screen filled with his face again, but this time the background was different. Not his office, not home, a warehouse, dim lighting, concrete walls. He said calmly, if you're watching this, then they've already come for you. My chest tight. They'll try intimidation first, he continued. Then persuasion, then fear. I thought of the photos, my house, my routine. He was right. If you're still free, he said, it means you did exactly what I hoped you would. He paused, then smiled slightly. I need you to understand something, he said. I didn't record this because I wanted revenge. I leaned closer. I recorded this because I wanted balance. Balance? For years, he continued, powerful people used silence as a weapon. Non-disclosure agreements, settlements, threats. He shook his head. I decided to try something else. He leaned forward, sunlight. The video shifted, screens appeared behind him, emails, contracts, bank transfers, all dated, all traceable. All of this, he said, goes public if the wrong people move too fast. He looked straight into the camera. If you're seeing this, Dad, they already did. My phone buzzed on the table, once, twice. I didn't answer. Here's what happens next, my son said calmly. At noon today, a timed release sends copies of these files to multiple independent outlets. My breath caught. They won't be able to stop it, he said. Even if they find you, even if they destroy the drive. He paused. But there's a problem. My stomach tight. Public exposure only works if people believe it, he said. And that's where you come in. The video ended. Sat back slowly. He wanted me to speak, to become the face of what he exposed. I wasn't a journalist. I wasn't an activist. I was a grieving father, and that was exactly the point. My phone rang, unknown number. I answered. A woman's voice this time, calm, professional. Mr. Bennett, she said, my name is Laura Finch. I'm an investigative reporter. I closed my eyes. It had started. We've received a data package, she continued. Scheduled for release in a few hours. My pulse quickened. We believe it's connected to your son, she said. And we'd like to confirm a few things before it goes live. I swallowed. What kind of things? Whether you're willing to go on record, she said. Silence filled the kitchen. If I say no, I asked. She hesitated. It will still run, she said honestly. But your voice would give it weight. Wait, that was the word my son used too. Give me an hour, I said. I hung up and stood. The house felt different now, like it was listening. I walked into my son's old room, everything still intact. The books, the desk, the awards he never displayed. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. He knew this moment would come. He planned for it, but he never asked if I was ready. I was. At 10:17 a.m., there was a knock at my door, not loud, not threatening, measured. I didn't open it. Mr. Bennett, a voice called calmly. We just want to talk. Different voice, different people. They were cycling through options now. I stepped back. The knocking stopped. My phone buzzed again, a message. They're panicking. Another. Good. I sat back at the table and dialed Laura Finch's number. I'll talk, I said. She exhaled audibly. Thank you, she said. We'll come to you. No, I replied. I'll come to you. I dressed slowly, carefully, like this was my last normal morning. As I reached the door, my phone buzzed again. A final message from the unknown number. Once you step outside, there's no going back. I typed back. I know. The drive to the studio felt unreal. Every light seemed brighter, every sound louder. When I arrived, security escorted me inside immediately. They didn't waste time. Laura Finch met me in a small room. She looked tired, focused. This is bigger than we expected, she said. Your son, he mapped an entire network. I nodded. He always liked patterns, I said. She gave a sad smile. "Are you ready?" she asked. I thought of the coffin, the laughter, the man who spoke too soon. "Yes," I said. The cameras turned on. The red light blinked. And for the first time since my son died, I spoke his truth out loud. I talked about the trust, the condition, the affair, the intimidation. I didn't embellish, I didn't accuse, I just told the story. When it ended, Laura leaned forward. "This will go live in 30 minutes, she said, my chest tightened. Outside the building, sirens wailed. Phones rang nonstop. Somewhere, people realized the game had changed. As I stood to leave, a producer rushed in. "They're trying to stop the release," he said urgently. "Legal threats, emergency injunctions." Laura shook her head. "It's too late," she said. She turned to me. "Once this is out," she said softly, "they'll come harder." I nodded. "I know." As I stepped outside, the sun hung low in the sky. My phone buzzed one last time, a final message. "No matter what happens next, remember this wasn't revenge." Another message followed. It was the truth catching up. I looked up at the sky and whispered my son's name. Behind me, the studio doors closed. Ahead of me, the world was about to hear what my son died to expose. And somewhere, the people who laughed at his funeral were realizing the laughter was never meant for the dead. The story went live at exactly noon. I didn't need to check my phone to know it. You can feel it when the air shifts. Sirens grew louder in the distance. Helicopters traced slow circles over the city. News vans lined the street outside the studio within minutes. The truth doesn't spread quietly. It arrives like a storm. Laura walked beside me as we exited through a side door. Her phone was glued to her ear. "Yes. Yes, we've verified the files. No, this isn't a single source. Yes, multiple outlets have copies." She ended the call and looked at me. "They're scrambling," she said. "Every firm named in your son's files is issuing statements." I nodded. "They always do that first," I said. "Deny, delay, distract." She studied me for a moment. "You sound like you've done this before." I shook my head. "My son did," I said. "I'm just finishing the sentence." Outside, a producer pressed a phone into my hand. "It's blowing up," he said. "Politicians, lawyers, old partners of your son." And he hesitated. "Your daughter-in-law." My chest tightened. I didn't answer, not yet. I needed to see how the truth moved without interference. Laura walked me to my car. "Please be careful," she said quietly. "This isn't just a scandal, it's systemic." "I know," I replied. As I drove away, my phone finally rang again. Same unknown number. I answered. The voice on the other end was shaking now, not confident, not controlled. "You did it," the man hissed. "You've destroyed years of work." I recognized him, the older man from the house, the calm one. "Years of silence," I corrected. "You don't understand what you've done," he said. "You've destabilized people far more powerful than you." I laughed softly. "That's what power always sounds like right before it collapses." His voice hardened. "This doesn't end here." "It never does," I replied. "But it ends for you." I hung up. The road ahead felt longer than usual. Every red light stretched. Every shadow felt watched. I knew the exposure had consequences, not just for them, for me. By the time I reached my house, 2 unmarked cars sat across the street. Watching, waiting, I didn't stop. I kept driving straight to my attorney's office. He was already standing at the door when I arrived. "Get inside," he said urgently. His office buzzed with activity, phones ringing, staff moving quickly, television screens replaying my interview. "You've lit a fuse," he said, locking the door behind us. "I know," I replied. He took a breath. "Good," he said, "because we're ready." He laid documents across the table, emergency protections, witness protocols, legal shields my son had quietly arranged years ago. "He prepared this," my attorney said, stunned. "He thought of everything." I nodded. "That was his gift," I said. "He never needed applause, he needed balance." As we talked, a breaking news banner flashed across the screen. "Multiple FIRMs under federal investigation following massive data leak." My attorney looked at me. "It's working," he said, but victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like standing at the edge of something vast. At 4:37 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it was her, my daughter-in-law. I stared at the name, then answered. "How could you do this?" she demanded, voice cracking. You've ruined everything." "No," I said calmly. "I told the truth." "You don't understand," she cried. "He promised me security. He promised this would all go away." "He lied," I said, "and my son knew it." Silence, then a whisper. "You think he loved you more than me?" I closed my eyes. "He loved honesty," I said, "and he knew you didn't." She hung up. I felt no satisfaction, only finality. That evening, arrests began, quiet ones at first. Executives escorted out of offices. Bank accounts frozen. Homes searched. The machinery of consequence turned slowly at first, then all at once. At midnight, a final message appeared on my phone. No number, just text. "You were right to finish it." I stared at the words. I didn't need to ask who sent it. I typed back, "You didn't have to die for this." The reply came after a long pause. I didn't. I chose the timing. I sat in the dark, the weight of those words settling in. My son didn't die helpless. He died prepared. The next morning, the city woke up different. Headlines screamed. Names fell. People who had spoken too confidently fell silent. And in the middle of it all, I stood still. Because part 8 wasn't about revenge. It was about the moment where the truth can no longer be buried. And from here on, there was no going back. The arrests didn't come with sirens. That was the first thing that surprised me. No dramatic raids. No flashing lights outside mansions, just quiet doors opening. Quiet men in suits stepping inside. Quiet faces realizing the game was over. Power doesn't fall loudly. It collapses inward. I watched it happen from my attorney's office. The television muted, news banners scrolling endlessly across the screen. Names I recognized. Firms I had seen on my son's documents. People who once laughed at subpoenas now avoiding cameras. My attorney stood by the window. "They're moving faster than I expected," he said. "They have to," I replied. "Too many copies, too many eyes," he nodded. "When secrets lose exclusivity, they lose power." My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a threat, it was a voicemail notification. Unknown number. I hesitated, then pressed play. A shaky male voice filled the room. "You don't know me," the voice said, "but I knew your son." I leaned forward. "I worked in compliance for one of the firms he exposed," the man continued. "I tried to report what I saw years ago. They buried it." His breath hitched. "When your son's files went public, they validated everything I'd been warning about." A pause. "They arrested my supervisor today." I closed my eyes. "Thank you," the voice said quietly, "for not letting them erase the truth again." The message ended. I sat back slowly. This wasn't just my son's story anymore. It was everyone's. The phone rang again almost immediately. This time I recognized the voice. The younger man from the interrogation. Angry now, uncontrolled. "You think you've exposed something," he snapped. "You've just scratched the surface." I didn't respond. "You've turned powerful enemies against yourself," he continued. "They won't forgive this." "I didn't ask them to," I replied calmly. Silence. Then a low laugh. "You really believe your son outsmarted all of us?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Then let's see how you handle this." The line went dead. My attorney looked at me sharply. "That didn't sound good." "No," I agreed. "It sounded desperate, and desperate people make mistakes." At exactly 3:18 p.m., my house alarm triggered remotely. I froze. "That's impossible," my attorney said. "You're not there." "I know," I replied, "and neither should anyone else be." We pulled up the security feed on his laptop. The front door camera activated. A figure stood there. My daughter-in-law. She looked unraveled, hair loose, eyes wild, phone pressed to her ear. She pounded on the door. "Open it," she screamed. "You can't do this to me." She kicked the door, my chest tight. "She's trespassing," my attorney said. "No," I said quietly, "she's panicking." She collapsed onto the steps, sobbing. Then she looked straight into the camera, into my eyes. "You planned this with him, didn't you?" she cried. "You always hated me." I swallowed. "No," I whispered. "He just saw you." Sirens approached. Neighbors gathered. She didn't notice. She was too busy falling apart. When the police arrived, she stood abruptly, shouting explanations. They didn't listen. They escorted her away, not arrested, but documented. That mattered. My attorney closed the laptop. "This is escalating." "Yes," I said, "and it's not over yet." At sunset, I received another call, different voice. Older, measured. "Mr. Bennett," the man said. "This is Director Havorson." I stiffened. "Federal." "We need to meet," he said. Immediately, I exhaled slowly. "About what?" "Your son," he replied, "and something he never shared publicly." The room felt colder. "I'm listening." "He didn't just expose corruption," the director said. "He exposed a weakness." My pulse quickened. "What kind of weakness?" "One that could destabilize markets," he said. "Internationally." I closed my eyes. "Of course. My son never did things halfway." "You're saying he held something back," I said. "Yes," the director replied. "And we believe you know where it is." I thought of the USB drive, the final hidden folder I hadn't opened, the one labeled "If they push too far." "I need assurances," I said carefully. "You'll have them," the director replied. "Protection, relocation, a new identity if necessary." I was silent. "My son didn't do this for leverage," I said. "He did it for balance." "And balance requires restraint," the director replied. I agreed to meet. The drive sat heavy in my pocket as I walked into the secure building later that night. No cameras, no windows, just concrete and quiet authority. The director sat across from me. "Your son uncovered a financial back channel," he said. "One that funds illegal operations globally." I nodded. "I know." "You also know where the access key is," he said. I took a breath. "Yes." He leaned forward. "We can shut it down permanently," he said. "But only once." I closed my eyes. My son had built a final switch, not for exposure, for collapse. "If I give this to you," I said, "you don't bury it." "We won't," the director said. "We can't afford to." I removed the drive and placed it on the table. "This ends tonight," I said. He nodded solemnly. "It does." As I stood to leave, he stopped me. "You should know," he said. "Your son recorded a message for you." My chest tightened. He slid a tablet across the table. The video played. My son's face appeared one last time. "Dad," he said softly, "if you're seeing this, then the hardest part is over." I swallowed. "I never wanted you to carry this alone," he said, "but I trusted you to finish it." He paused. "People will argue about what I did. They'll debate morality, legality, intent." He smiled faintly. "Let them." The screen faded to black. I sat there, heart pounding. Outside, the night felt different, lighter. He had planned everything, the exposure, the pressure, the restraint, and now only one thing remained. The aftermath. The morning after everything ended was the quietest morning of my life. No sirens, no reporters, no phones ringing. Just sunlight through the kitchen window and the slow ticking of the clock my son bought me years ago. I stood there holding my coffee, watching steam rise, realizing something strange. For the first time since his funeral, the house felt still. Not empty, still. The news broke in waves over the next few days. Executives resigned, firms dissolved, accounts frozen. Investigations expanded beyond borders. The words systemic failure and coordinated corruption flooded every screen. People asked the same question over and over. How did one man uncover all this? They were asking the wrong question. It wasn't one man. It was a son who refused to let silence win. I didn't give interviews after that first one. I didn't need to. The truth didn't require repetition. When my attorney called to confirm the final settlements were complete, his voice was calm. "It's over," he said. "No one can touch you now." I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat alone and let myself do something I hadn't done yet. I cried. Not the sharp, choking grief that comes with sudden loss, but the slow kind. The kind that arrives when purpose finally leaves your body and there's room for pain. I cried for the boy who used to sit at this table doing homework, for the man who outgrew the world he was born into, and for the son who trusted me with his final move. A week later, I returned to the cemetery. Same plot, same stone. No cameras this time, no whispers, just me. I knelt and placed my hand on the cold granite. "You did it," I said softly. "Exactly the way you said you would." The wind stirred the trees overhead. I imagined for a moment that faint laugh again. Not mocking, not cruel, satisfied. As I stood to leave, a woman approached quietly. She kept her distance. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't want to interrupt." I nodded. She introduced herself. She was the compliance officer who had left the voicemail weeks earlier. They reinstated my report, she said, cleared my record, I smiled. That was your work, I said. She shook her head. No, she replied, it was his. She hesitated. I just wanted you to know what he did saved more people than you'll ever meet. I swallowed. Thank you for telling me, I said. When she left, I stood there a long time thinking about legacy. Not money, not reputation, but impact. Months passed. Life slowly found a new rhythm. I sold the house and moved somewhere smaller, quieter. I donated most of what remained of my son's fortune to causes he believed in. Not because it looked good, but because it felt right. The rest I set aside quietly, for education funds, whistleblower protections, legal aid. Places where truth often loses simply because it's expensive. One evening, as I sat on the porch of my new home, my phone buzzed. A final message. No number, no threat, just text. He always said you'd understand. I stared at the screen. I didn't reply. I didn't need to because I finally did understand. The laughter at the funeral wasn't cruelty. It wasn't revenge. It was timing. A final reminder that even in death, my son refused to let liars control the narrative. He didn't leave millions. He left accountability. And in a world built on silence, that may be the most dangerous inheritance of all. I looked out at the darkening sky and whispered one last thing. I heard it. And for the first time since that day, I felt peace.